Hey, welcome to episode 3 of Poetry for Humans. I'm excited to read a poem with you today. Thanks so much to those of you who've watched the first 2 episodes and who've shared them with friends. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you're here again. So let's go ahead and go over to the poetry stack and we'll see what we get. All right, so I have wanted to read more Lucille Clifton for a while now. So I think that we're going to grab her book, How to Carry Water. Now, Lucille Clifton is a poet who was born in the mid-1930s, I think like 36, maybe 34. I'm pretty sure it's an even number. She passed in 2010. She's a really amazing woman who was predominantly published later in life. I think she really started publishing. She wrote poems her entire life or early on in her life, but really started publishing in the 80s. She won all kinds of awards, National Book Awards for poetry, was nominated for Pulitzer Prizes, even won an Emmy Award. Incredible. So let's see what kind of poem we can read from Lucille Clifton. So I'm going to go ahead and flip through the book. I'm going to take off this book cover because who needs that? Bye-bye. My friend Jordan always talked about how you should just, when you get a book with a book cover, you should just throw the book jacket away because nobody ever needs them. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I respect Jordan. Okay, let's see. All right, let's read this one. Here Yet Be Dragons. This is really beautiful and I think a kind of thought-provoking image. So I'm going to read this poem for us and then we'll start noticing things. Here Yet Be Dragons. So many languages have fallen off the edge of the world into the dragon's mouth. Some where there be monsters whose teeth are sharp and sparkle with lost people, lost poems. Who among us can imagine ourselves unimagined? Who among us can speak with so fragile tongue and remain proud? So this central image, obviously, Here Yet Be Dragons. This is kind of a reference to old maps, and now it's kind of become a joke, right? Here There Be Dragons, where you'd kind of like mark danger spots on the world. And I love this. So many languages have fallen off the edge of the world, kind of referring to like old conceptions of a flat earth. Of course, the poem isn't really about dragons or a flat earth, right? It's about time, I think. Let me know if you think differently. By the way, that's always an open invitation. So many of you have left really thoughtful, insightful comments on some of these videos. I want to hear from you because I don't always know what I'm doing. This poem is really about language. So many languages. What's interesting is that she starts with this plural, so many languages, kind of talking about entire civilizations. And I think a lot of Lucille Clifton's poetry deals with erased culture, especially because she's writing as a Black woman in America. She feels the erasure that she's been pressed into. I think that this poem deals with a lot of that whether through colonization or slavery or time or conquest, whatever it might be, that these civilizations have been wiped off the map, like a language falling off the edge of the earth into the dragon's mouth. There's kind of a, you know what? This is interesting. I never know what I'm gonna get in some of these videos. They're always a little scary, just to like flip to a poem and not know if I'm gonna know what I'm talking about or if we're gonna find anything good. And then, of course, because this is what poems are designed to do, insight sparks. I love it. Okay, so really the dragon's mouth here is representing mystery and unknowability. That's what we're really talking about here. The dragon wasn't, on maps, wasn't referring to an actual dragon. It was referring to some dangerous place, some unknown. And what's more terrifying than a known terror, an unknown terror, right? Okay, so let's move into this second stanza, because now she's going to start developing this thought, and we're going to see a lot of specificity. So we start with this kind of general image of here yet be dragons, falling off the edge of the earth, the mystery and the unknown. We start with that plural of languages, but now she's going to start getting a lot more specific in these stanzas. Where there be monsters whose teeth are sharp and sparkle with lost. You can kind of envision exploration and time as a different thing at a time when you'd write on a map, here there be dragons. You can envision the explorer setting off for months, years, and not knowing whether they would find anything or be lost to mystery, be lost to time, essentially. Sparkle with lost. What I love about this too is that there's almost this kind of image of where there be monsters whose teeth are sharp and sparkle with lost people. It's almost like these explorers who've set off are gummed up in the dragon's maw, right? Stuck in the dragon's tooth like a piece of spinach or something. Lost people. And then here she flips. Lost poems. Who among us can imagine ourselves unimagined? That is an absolutely gorgeous question. Who among us can imagine ourselves unimagined? Who among us can imagine ourselves lost to time? I think about this a lot. For whatever reason, my entire life, I have been fascinated with being in a generational line, and in many ways feeling the weight of keeping the name that I've inherited. And it's even led me to, keep things like sitting on my desk here. I've got my papa and my uncle both wore ID bracelets. So this was my uncle. This was his ID bracelet. His first name was Robert. He went by Wayne. That's my middle name. I feel that, and I think about that weekly. But even with that consciousness, even with that conscientiousness of thinking about past generations, we eventually are unnamed, aren't we? Think about how many generations back you could name. I think I could maybe name great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. But after that, who among us can imagine ourselves unimagined? And yet that isn't how we walk about our day. We walk about our day as if we will always be imagined, as if the decisions that we're making now will be passed down and attached to who we are, which in some ways is true. I believe in the eternal. So there's some truth, I believe, that what we do will be remembered and saved. But in some senses, how freeing could it be even to think of ourselves as kind of lost in time or explorers stepping out into this boundless mystery, who will one day be unimagined? I think that induces a kind of humility that helps us to understand who we are and perhaps who we are in time. Who among us can speak with so fragile tongue and remain proud? Who among us can speak with so fragile tongue and remain proud? Again, the fragility here is because of time and mystery. We won't be remembered. Our tongue is this ephemeral thing that will eventually fade away. It's interesting that so much of this poem focuses on. Maybe I might walk this back. At first, it feels like the poem centers on people, but really, now that I'm looking at it, that's not true, because she opens with this: so many languages have fallen off the edge of the world. We wouldn't have a language without people, right? So really, she's exploring this relationship between being a person and speaking, which is why I think she specifies down from languages down to people and poems. Because we write poems in part because we want them to be remembered. We write them to be remembered. They are designed to be remembered. That goes back to some of our oldest oral traditions. Who among us can speak with so fragile tongue and remain proud? And here's where she gives us some hope. She doesn't say, tritely, you can be remembered forever, or things that we maybe sometimes hear, you'll live on in the memories of the people who love you, which is, of course, true and beautiful, and we need that hope. But what is it like to wake up, to face the day as mystery, to face the potential of being lost to time, to face the fragility of who we are, and yet to speak as people who can make a difference in the lives of those with whom we come into contact? That's the beautiful thing. To face each day as that map where there be dragons, and to face it as a human who will be unimagined and yet is proud to have lived. Wow, she is a beautiful poet, and I'm really glad that we got to read this together. I hope you'll go out and you'll face this day as someone who speaks with a fragile tongue and yet proud. Thanks for watching.